Ruminant stomach. So naturally, ruminant stomach, this is seen in herbivorous animals, like for example cattle, goat, sheep, etc. In these animals, as you are well aware of, their main food is grass. And grass is made up of the carbohydrate called cellulose. Now, this is important. The monomers are glucose. Many glucose molecules make up cellulose, but cellulose is different and starch is different, completely different. Starch is also made up of glucose, cellulose is also made up of glucose, but the bonding is slightly different over here. These are made up of alpha D glucose units, this is made up of beta D glucose units. Because of this, the bond between glucose molecules is different, the bond between glucose molecules is different. So starch can be digested by enzyme amylase, but cellulose cannot be digested by amylase. And cellulose can only be digested by cellulase, and no animal produces cellulase. Then how to digest cellulose? So if you don't want to digest cellulose, then all the grass which is available on this earth is a completely useless product. So herbivorous animals have devised another strategy. What have they done? They keep within themselves, inside their stomach, symbionts. These symbionts are protozoans and lots of bacteria. They produce cellulase and therefore they have cellulolytic enzymes. And this is kept within their stomach. All these symbionts are in their stomach. So I'll repeat this once again, it's very interesting. Say a human being eats starch and can digest starch because human beings have the enzyme amylase. But cellulose, although it is made up of glucose, the bond is slightly different. It is a beta D glucose units. It cannot be digested by amylase. It has to be digested by an enzyme called cellulase. But no animal produces cellulase. Therefore, what do? These symbionts, they keep within their stomach, a compartment of the stomach, they keep protozoans and bacteria, microorganisms, sometimes fungi. These are cellulolytic enzymes because they produce cellulase. And with the help of this, they are able to complete their digestion. So this is an interesting example of adaptation. Naturally, adaptation is a proof of selection. So who can say that evolution does not take place or evolution has not taken place? If this kind of adaptation is seen and understood by us as students of science, it is proof that evolution has taken place. So let us look at a simple diagrammatic way of representing the compartments. Okay. So from the esophagus, I'm just drawing this part. From the esophagus is a large compartment which is called as rumen, and joined with it there is another compartment which is called as reticulum. So this one is rumen, and inside this there are projections which are hexagonal that look like a beehive like structure. These are nothing but projections of the folds of the compartment of the stomach. So this part is reticulum. Okay, so how does food come inside now? Food has come into this rumen. Its capacity is more than 2 liters. Okay, so it will contain a lot of space and lot of capacity. And in this rumen now, there is a lot of grass or lot of cellulose material which the animal has gulped down very quickly. Suppose in the forest or in the jungle, deer is there. It eats very fast because it is always wary of predators. So as it is eating this grass, it is quickly gulped down. And all these animals produce a lot of saliva. Next time you can just go and look at a cow, see how much amount of saliva it produces. So with this saliva and food, that is cellulose, try to differentiate between the enzyme and the substrate. Substrate is OSE, enzyme is ASE, cellulase. So this is substrate. So both saliva and cellulose have come in very quickly into this chamber of rumen. There is very little oxygen over here. Okay, so this is, and temperature is high because this is a mammal that we are talking about. So what happens is anaerobic processes starts. Okay, anaerobic process starts because remember there are millions and millions of microorganisms over here, which I just told you, protozoans and lots of bacteria and fungi. All of them are here, and all of them break this cellulose down with cellulase and break it down. So they metabolize them in the absence of oxygen, anaerobic processes, and they will convert them into short chain fatty acids, like for example butyric acid or propionic acid or ethanoic acid. All these are short chain fatty acids, and all these fatty acids, some of it is of course used by the microbes and some of it is taken up by the host, and they absorb it and they utilize this, and from this they obtain energy. Okay, so the food has now been broken down largely over here. Anaerobic fermentation has taken place. So this is anaerobic fermentation has taken place over here. Because of this fermentation, different gases are produced like methane, carbon dioxide. That is why these animals also are a source of pollution as far as methane is concerned. And when it gets into this second chamber of reticulum, I will erase this part over here. So when it comes into this chamber, the food is now made into boluses. Bolus is a round laddu like structure, a bolus or a small pellets depending upon the animal. And the food now, very interestingly, goes from here into this reticulum, rumen first, reticulum, and goes back into the mouth. Now, when it goes back into the mouth, by this time the animal is resting. When the animal is resting, it can sit comfortably. So, take this back. This is called as cud. So, when this food has been made into boluses and goes back to the mouth, that's called as cud. And it can chew the cud. This is called as rumination, and that is why the name is ruminant stomach. So they are sitting in the shade of a tree or sitting somewhere and chewing this cud. The food has been regurgitated out and they chew it, and once again the food comes back. So when it now comes back, it goes into the third chamber. Then there is another chamber over here. You see now what happened? Or we will take another pen, coloring. So now food which has come back will not go back into the rumen. It will go directly into this part, and the name of this part is omasum, and this omasum has got several folds over here. It is rounded. So this is omasum. So rumen, reticulum, omasum. The other name for this is solitarium. P is silent. And as the food goes inside this, it is actually sieved over here. Smaller particles will go into this part. Larger particles will remain over here. They may again get back and get redigested. And this is the true stomach. This one is the true stomach. It's also called as abomasum. Although I have written this word solitarium, it is better to just remember one word, omasum. So first was rumen, second reticulum, third omasum, and always the word ab is after, so it's easy to remember. Abomasum. Ab means after, so omasum is first one or before it, and then last one is abomasum. This is true stomach. Why it is called true stomach? Because it has got gastric glands. It has got true stomach because it has got gastric glands that secrete enzymes like pepsin, HCl, etc. And because of these gastric glands, digestion can take place. Now, if some part of the food has been absorbed by the bacteria or by these microbes, and they use it to reproduce themselves and keep their population in high number over here. But their number is quite high, and in this process of going up and down, some of them will actually eventually end up into this stomach, and they themselves get digested, and all the energy which they have is becoming energy of the host. Okay. So in this way, both are benefited. The ruminant is highly benefited, and of course all these symbiotic organisms, even their life cycle goes on completely, so they are also benefited. One other important point to note over here is that if we supply a little bit of urea to these cattle, then this urea gets broken down into amino acids, or rather actually first into ammonia, and then these microorganisms use that as a source of amino acid source, and then from this they make proteins, and these proteins are ultimately some of the bacteria are over here, so those proteins will become part of protein of host. So for the ruminant, although it is eating mainly cellulose, a little amount of urea in its diet will be sufficient for its protein source. This is a useful way of source of protein. So this is an interesting way in which some animals, herbivores, they feed. I told you that this is there in cattle and these kinds of animals. What you can do is try to find out something about let's say camel. Let's say find out something about with respect to ruminant stomach. You can maybe find out something with respect to rabbit, find out something with respect to horse, and see if all of these animals have the same type of or pattern of pre-gastric digestion. Why we call it as pre-gastric digestion? Because this is stomach, and most of the digestion has taken place here. So this is called pre-gastric digestion. Once again, to revise, this problem occurs because, or this interesting solution occurs because these animals, they eat cellulose. If they did not eat cellulose, all the grass would be left behind. So they eat cellulose, but they have no enzyme, cellulase, and therefore in their rumen they keep a continuous constant population of microorganisms which are living symbiotically and are able to digest food anaerobically. So it gets digested over here in this rumen, which is a fermentation vat or a fermentation chamber in the reticulum. It is converted to boluses, it gets back, it now chews the cud conveniently, and when it is resting, now this food goes over here into omasum, which is like a sieve, it filters it, made up of folds, and from here moves into true stomach or abomasum, where it is now getting digested. So I hope that you have understood, and this is Professor Ravindranath signing off. Thank you.